What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the show, and today we're gonna have a little bit of fun. I was browsing through YouTube the other day, just killing time idly, enjoying content by other moto vloggers, and I saw Lolly had just released a video talking about things she wished she knew when she was getting started, and I thought it would actually be kind of fun to throw out 5 of the things that I wish I had known, or more specifically, 5 mistakes that I made when I was just getting started. Should be kind of fun. Let's dive on in. Now, the first mistake that I made when I was getting started is something that I think a lot of people do. They start and they have no gear whatsoever. Instead of going to like Cycle Gear onto RevZilla and getting like a nice set of beginner gear, instead I went to my dealership, my Harley dealership, bought a motorcycle, and then the sales guy was like, well, why don't we bundle in $1,000 worth of gear onto your loan? That was the first mistake I made. Do not finance your motorcycle gear. Now, if you're confused like I was, there is a difference between a gear credit, which is a promotional thing that a dealership will run, versus just getting an extra $1,000 tacked on to whatever you're financing. The reason why this is such a big pain in the butt is it makes that $500 jacket, the $300 helmet, and a pair of boots cost a lot more later on down the line. And if you find yourself in a situation like I was, where the motorcycle I had gotten a loan for was totaled out, my gap coverage completely covered the motorcycle. It did not, however, cover the gear. So I still had to pay on a loan for a motorcycle that I didn't have because it was for my gear.
Now, I actually still do have that jacket. It's that Harley Davidson Willie G. Davidson limited edition jacket, but I would never have paid as much as I actually ended up paying for that jacket if I just bought it out of pocket. It doesn't really make sense, especially when you consider that gear is disposable. Stuff like your helmet, you should just buy it cash, and if you can't afford it, cheap helmets are actually really great nowadays. There is no reason to not own your motorcycle gear outright. Now, I know some people might actually look for a cheaper route here, but I would recommend not buying used gear. Sure, you can get some good deals on stuff like maybe some old boots or a jacket, but other than that, stuff like gloves, stuff like your helmet, you should just buy those brand new. Make sure they fit you right, because there's some very, very important pieces of your motorcycle riding experience. Not to mention, nobody wants to put on someone else's used helmet. Nobody wants to put on this helmet because of what I know it smells like. And if you do, you're weird.
The second mistake I made is probably a very common one. I thought the MSF class taught me everything I needed to know. Now, I'm not one of those people who dogs on the MSF. I know a lot of people make fun of it for being a waste of time or just not enough, but it's a great place to start if you've never gotten on a motorcycle. That's the whole point. They give you the foundational skills to be safe on a motorcycle. The rest, that's actually up to you.
Let me tell you a story of the first time I actually took my motorcycle out on the street. It was the first time I wanted to ride it to the office, and I was so proud, and I knew because I had passed the MSF, I was ready to hit the road. Turns out, I was going downhill into a corner a little bit faster than I was anticipating, and I almost freaked out on the bike, and it actually really scared me. Those are the kind of things that the MSF course just can't prepare you for, because the street is super unpredictable. And you got to remember that they're training to a curriculum that's across the entire United States. And that's why no matter where you go, your MSF course is going to look very, very similar to the one that I ended up taking.
I would highly suggest spending some time practicing in a parking lot with your motorcycle. It's going to be different than what you've learned on with the MSF. Then spend some time poodling around in your neighborhood. Get used to changing traffic patterns and doing head looks while there's cars all around you, and get over that sensory overload before you go try to ride somewhere a little bit more complicated, like a twisty road downtown or on the highway. It's a slow process. You don't need to plunge in all at once. Motorcycling will be there the rest of your life if you take it nice and slow and don't scare the crap out of yourself. The third thing, you probably shouldn't buy new. This is something that Lolly mentioned in her video, and I'm gonna second. I think it was a mistake for me to get my brand new Street 750 when I started out. Not that it was a bad motorcycle, I was just terrified of dropping that bike, and you really shouldn't be. You are probably gonna drop your first motorcycle. You might scuff up some of the new shiny bits, and it's gonna hurt so bad if you do that. But if you're on a used bike, that won't really be an issue. If I was gonna start all over again, knowing what I know now, I'd probably want to start on a Sportster 1200, one of those old Evo ones, or I would want to start on a DRZ 400 SM. That would be a ton of fun as a first bike.
Another thing that I want to add here is buy whatever motorcycle gives you a soul boner, to steal one of Whitney's sayings, and don't put too much stock into online reviews. Who cares what some dummy online says about your motorcycle? If you like the Vulcan 650, that's awesome. Go grab one. If you like the Z650, that's awesome. Go grab one. If you like the Versa 650, that's awesome. Go grab one. It doesn't matter that I think that the motorcycle is so bland that it sucks emotion out of whoever rides it and turns them into a cold, calculating robot. If you enjoy it, have fun. And despite all of my misgivings about that bike, I can sit here and admit that it is an extremely reliable motor, and it's a phenomenal place to start. My point is, if you are having fun on your motorcycle, then it is the right bike for you, and everybody else can just go pound sand. Have fun.
The fourth thing, maintenance, maintenance, maintenance. I was one of those people who took my bike to the dealership for every little thing. It's kind of funny looking at it now because I can actually tear apart a motor and do pretty all right. I'm not gonna say I'm gonna do it right, but it'll work for a little while. I spent money on my first service, on the second service, on the third one, every little oil change. Anytime there was an issue with the motorcycle or the fueling or something felt weird, I took it straight to the dealership. I didn't bother doing any work myself, and that was a big mistake. Half of the fun of motorcycling is actually learning how your bike works. Not to mention, with how good YouTube University is and being tuition free, you should not take your bike into the dealership for things like adjusting your chain, cleaning your chain, taking your wheels off. All of that stuff is actually very simple to do, and it doesn't take that many special tools.
The first thing I would recommend you pick up if you're going to start a journey into maintaining your own motorcycles is a really nice toolkit, something from like Craftsman or Husky, and it's going to cost you a couple $100 out the door. However, those are very, very good toolkits that could last you the rest of your life. They aren't going to include everything that you need, but it is an amazing foundation for just about any kind of motorcycle, whether you're on a Harley Davidson and you need SAE, or if you're on any other motorcycle and need metric. Beyond that, a few things that you are going to need is a rear stand that fits your particular motorcycle, a grunge brush if you have a chain drive, and a torque wrench. Oh, and you're probably going to need a set of snap ring pliers. And you're probably also going to need Torx bits. And you're probably also going to need...
The last thing I would recommend, and the biggest mistake I think I made, is I just rode on the street for years and years and years. I thought that was the best thing motorcycling had to offer. Going and seeing what was on the other side of the horizon or bombing down my favorite back road. But there is so much more to motorcycling, whether or not you're riding off-road or on a racetrack. You get to learn so much stuff. Not only that, but you might get to experience different kinds of bikes and learn that, hey, maybe your cruiser isn't doing it for you anymore, or maybe this Super Duke is absolutely ridiculous and you don't need to own one. But you should, because it's so cool and it's so fast and it's so fun.
Personally, I would recommend you start with off-road riding. A, it's way cheaper than riding on any racetrack, and B, if you're in a state that's not Texas, there's a lot of awesome public land out there, and if you are in Texas, you just better get good at running from hill folk with a shotgun and a murder boner. Riding off-road is going to teach you how to play with the edge of traction, and you're going to be able to do it much, much slower than on something like a racetrack. Not to mention, you don't need a bunch of super specific gear, and the gear that you do need is way cheaper than any track gear. Now, admittedly, you do need a more specialized kind of motorcycle if you didn't start on an adventure bike or a dual sport, but see if one of your buddies has one. I guarantee you they'd have a ton of fun taking you out riding with them. Or if you want to get really good with it, there's a lot of schools out there that'll teach you how to ride off-road and rent you a motorcycle. My personal recommendation would be Ride Adventures. They have one of the best curriculums in teaching you how to ride an adventure bike off-road. I find off-road riding the most fun thing that I can do on two wheels, and I would recommend it to anybody, regardless of whether you're a track rat or you just want to go ride long distances. Spending time in the dirt is so much fun and it's so rewarding.
And there you have it, guys. 5 major mistakes that I made when I was starting out. My hope is that by doing this, you'll be able to avoid some of those mistakes, or you're sitting at home nodding along being like, yep, I did the exact same damn thing. If I missed any, and I know I did, let me know down in the comments below, and maybe we should see if we can get somebody else out there to make one of these videos and just get the whole community going. That would be kind of fun, wouldn't it? I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.